Welcome to Books with Al-Gazali. Myself and Lukman Buba Undagas have been reviewing power, politics, and media. Lukman, you're welcome.
Thank you, sir.
Last week I was unfortunately out of the studio for some past. We'll try to see how we can lump together all these key issues so that we can end the book in good time. Our chapter today is the 11th, I think.
Yes, 11.
Which is the early signals as per Segunadini's arrangement. So, as we've always done, can you share
the budget of 2007? 2008, when it was sent to the National Assembly to assent into bill, but when they brought it back for the president to sign, he refused because they made a lot of changes. They made a lot of additions, which he saw it were not very deemed to be like that. So the budget of that year was really delayed, even though, as Sheon mentioned, that it is just normally that the budget was not actually does not get ready on time, and the president probably decided to take the case to court. But then there was a lot of going back and forth that he shouldn't do that, that the National Assembly might take that as a declaration of war and they'll fight back. And suppose the sickness started manifesting, and the time when it was set for the bill for the budget to be signed, he took some malarial drugs, and then his face got really swollen. And as it usually happens in the villa, when the budget is going to be signed, it's going to be a ceremonial issue, and the leadership of the National Assembly, the press, everybody will be invited. But then the president could not appear in that appearance with a swollen face. So it was, I think, adjusted to the evening, where a lot of adjustment like that. Not everyone was there, only the leaders of the National Assembly, and it was done in a kind of way that it would not be very noticeable to the public, like taken in a kind of angle far away from his face. And after signing the budget, when he was to go to Saudi Arabia, as said, for medical checkup there, things like that at Shegun Adini. And it actually started from there. After that, subsequently, a lot of sickness here and there, going to Saudi Arabia for laser Hajj. And then it was a kind of medical tourism, actually. And his intention to go to Obudu Cattle Ranch, which it didn't happen. His intention to go to Brazil, which was rescheduled. Then going to Germany. So from that moment, the problem, or should I say the beginning of his end, started. Subsequently, sickness here and there. And then concurrently, the power struggle started. That when he was to go to vacation, he was to send a formal notification to the National Assembly, and from his advisors somewhere advising him to send that notification somewhere against it. And also, when he was to go to Saudi Arabia, he was to formally write the National Assembly for his vice president to be the acting president, things going here and there. So as his sickness started, power struggle also started. Even when he was in Saudi Arabia, everybody was blocked from seeing him except his chief security officer and the first lady alone. Even Segun Adeni, other powerful members of his cabinet, even the National Assembly leaders went to see him but couldn't. So a lot of things happened at the end, which we have actually discussed a lot in the preliminary discussion of this book.
Okay. Actually, that was a summary of the chapter, but there were key issues from which we can draw some parallels,
Yes.
and reflect on some of the things that we later wake up to in the country. How do you make of, this insistence by President Yaradua not to sign the budget because of excessive tampering by members of the National Assembly, and the case of what had happened in 2016 when President Buhari came to power and he introduced or popularized budget padding. And so what and then why is this thing happening all the time from the first budget, the first year? The members of the National Assembly, for instance, trying to take advantage of a newcomer.
Yes.
Or is the president actually new to the way in which things are done, and he finds these things to be great anomalies when they are in fact the way things have been done? Or is it that presidents in the past have so much bastardized the processes such that when anyone comes and tries to do what is appropriate, it is seen as some sort of something outside of normal conduct, so do you see what do you make of these two experiences? Do you look at them as something to do with naivety of the chief executives having been in power for the first time, unlike President Buhari, who in fact had a stint in the office previously, but in his case, the first experience was as a military head of state, where things were done within
dictatorial, without any democratic.
So the second coming, in any case, made him a newcomer because it was a whole new system.
Yes.
And he was to deal with members of the National Assembly who have had experience of being there for the last 10-15 years or thereabout. There are people who have been there since 99. These are people who have had all the experience.
Yes.
Some of them started their stint from the 90s.
Yes.
So, in your mind, what do you make of these things? Is it that they are newcomers and the legislators want to take advantage of their perceived naivety?
Well, of course, I think it's taking advantage, but I don't see it in the light of being naive from the side of the president. Being that even if the president is new to the system, the president is not running the affairs of the presidency alone. He has a lot of aides and other people that help him, like the ministers, the special assistants. Even if he's coming there for the first time, the other people that are experienced there. So even setting the budget, the president is not doing it himself. The people that are supposed to do that. And even before he signs, if the president is serious about it, he will inquire. Before sending it to the National Assembly, this is what they presented. And coming back from the National Assembly, everything changed. What happened along the way? I think that was the interjection of President Muhammadu Buhari when he popularized budget padding, because he didn't know, what is happening? What's wrong with these people? And I think it's we can look at it from the angle of power play or power struggle, because the executive cannot act alone in a democratic system.
Okay, but then don't forget the role of Abdulmumin Jibrin in the case of Buhari,
Yes.
who went to the press saying that, as a chairman of the appropriation committee of the House of Representatives, he in fact went to the press saying that the budget was largely padded by members of the National Assembly, which eventually led to his own dismissal from
Yes.
that post, and eventually his failure to return to the house ever again.
Yes.
Till that time. I think there is something about Nigerian politics that if you are ever found to have betrayed your colleagues, even in committing crimes, you will always face this backlash.
Yes.
But whereas President Buhari's case was made worse by the open condemnation of the act by Jibrin, it did not seem to be the same in the case of President Yaradua.
Yes.
Yaradua was a governor, under democratic system.
So he knows.
So he knows the budgetary processes.
Yes.
For him to have found it inappropriate, it still tells you that the conduct at the level of the National Assembly was inappropriate, even though you can as well not compare the State House of Assemblies, which many have said are just mere rubber stamps.
Yes.
The amount of experience and the amount of power the National Assembly has over the president constitutionally, because the National Assembly has still maintained its independence better than state houses of assembly.
Yes.
And so therefore, with that, it was better positioned to challenge or to blackmail or intimidate the president.
Yes.
But in the state governments, they are all merely just rubber stamps. Many have said that. So they do not even have the liver.
Yes.
To try to
challenging.
They have to lobby.
Yes.
The executive to add things that that serve some of their interests.
Yes.
So so when you look at President Yaradua and President Buhari, you will have to now say that the problem is largely a clash between someone who thinks that he has all the powers to do this and another set of people who said that no, look, we call the shots.
Yes.
It isn't you.
You are the president, notwithstanding you don't have the full power.
I think it is. We contextualize that from this framework, but still, what Seun didn't really say, and what I cannot personally remember, is whether the president had finally sought the interpretation of the Supreme Court over the matter, because given that the legislators were trying to, fight back, if the president decided to go to the Supreme Court, they finally reached a compromise.
Yes.
president decided to sign the budget and to pursue the matter at the Supreme Court. Now, what this work didn't say, and I think probably a second edition might be needed to, fill a few gaps not really effectively addressed, such as this, because Seun did not tell us what later happened. Did Yaradua go to the Supreme Court, and what did the Supreme Court say thereafter? Because in the case of Yaradua, after the 2000, effectively the 2007 budget was Obasanjo's budget.
Yes.
The 2000 budget was his first budget, and then the 2009 budget also was marred by quite a number of problems which were to do with his health condition. We would, for instance, wondered why has the matter not repeated, subsequent budget. But then again, even on the second budget, he was not even in place to do most of the things.
Yes.
Then that of I think 2010, he signed it on his sick bed.
Yes.
So I think he never had it smoothly with this budget thing. But in any case, let us understand this from this perspective. We keep on saying on this platform that being Nigeria's president or being a leader is not a tea party affair.
Of course it is.
There are inherent systematic challenges that the president has to rest with to be able to get certain decisions met. In essence, if you analyze the system, you tend to see that the president has only very little role to play in many things.
Yes.
Because the budget, now constitutionally, even if he had the powers to appropriate and then seek the approval of the National Assembly, the system gives the National Assembly tools with which they can fight back.
Yes,
and
exactly.
insist that the president succumbs to whatever.
Yes. Because when you look at something as little as the president going to vacation is required to formally write the National Assembly.
So should they attempt to play naughty, they will simply say that we did not approve.
Yes, exactly. And the president will be in trouble.
If he does, Buhari had faced that
Yes.
a similar backlash from the National Assembly under Dogara and Saraki.
Yes.
The two of them gave him so much of a headache.
Yes.
During his first tenure, and that is why Buhari will continue to be forever grateful to Ahmed Lawan, who was level-headed,
Yes.
And who was fully in support of
Whatever the
president does. There were times members of the Senate moved to impeach the president, or moved against the president's directives, or even openly criticized the president's decisions on the floor of the Senate, and he overruled them and a lot of things. So the system is problematic.
It's very problematic.
And that makes us to discuss the arrangement of the Nigerian state. Now, the resources of the country is in the hands of the executive.
Yes.
Now, the legislature, makes the laws, and then the judiciary interprets the law. Now, at the end of the day, some appointments, are purely political.
Yes.
Now, that challenges the true spirit of separation of powers. The president does not ordinarily participate in choosing who becomes the Senate president.
Yes. The normal cycle.
Yes, but it is political arrangement, and the president has in fact the mistake Buhari made was to think that he needed not to interfere
Yes.
in the
National Assembly selection
in
of
the
the president.
first tenure, and that saw the emergence of Saraki and Dogara. So it is political appointment, and it is almost at the behest of the president and the party.
Yes.
So when this comes from the president directly, or the president's endorsement overrides the collective or the aspirations of the individual members of the, it still tells you that, okay, I put my person there, he does the bidding of the party and of the president. And then when you come to appointments into the judiciary, the Supreme Court judge, the president of the Court of Appeal, and most of the heads of these judicial departments and so on, were also, even though recommendations were made by the Judicial Council and other, but the president, even though in their case, almost everyone knows the hierarchy and so on, yes. But we have seen in the case of I think Onegin, how he was systematically, booted out of office, yes. And so on. So, at the end of the day, it looks as if the president controls virtually everything. But then again, in democracy, your ability to manipulate the system, your sagacity, political sagacity, is really quite important. And even Buhari, who consistently props himself up as a non-interfering democratic president, has eventually been transformed over time into a politician. And he's, because sometimes that's one thing with system, that's one thing with a company. You are whatever your company is, yes. Because over time it is hard that you are not, whipped into submission, because after the first clash over the budget padding, we had nothing. Yes. It went down. We had over 5 budgets thereafter.
Nobody even longer cares about.
But and then of course padding did not end.
No, exactly. It didn't start then, and it didn't end.
So, but these are issues we need to address as a people. But even if we cannot address these issues, we should understand about our country, and they should be at the heart of the discussions we should be having about the country, especially during elections. We should understand the limitations to power. We should understand the arrangement of this. These are issues to discuss. How do we have 3 arms of government and keep on telling ourselves that they run independently, and then because of certain political systematic advantage one part has over the other, you find out that it takes advantage of it to abuse the very laws they have made themselves. So I think the conversation about Nigeria is sometimes not really on key issues.
Yes.
They're mostly about emotions. You know, okay, the president appoints the president of the Court of Appeal. Now, it is not a question of whether the Constitution has been duly followed. The question is whether he is from the north,
Yes,
or from the south.
south. Yes.
And as much as me personally, Lukman, I don't have problem with people trying to, question or asking for their share in a federal arrangement.
Yes.
Because there is this, people will say that why are you always supporting a northerner? Why are you? The point is that, okay, the northerner I'm supporting is credible, is competent, and you say it is democracy. You are so if he is competent, I think I like him.
How is that your business?
Why should anyone make it look like it is
unpatriotic?
Unpatriotic to say that, okay, I will not support
this candidate,
or you should not. It is a shame that after 8 years of a northern presidency, you are still talking about. In the first place, those who made this agreement about another, I was not part of. I have not been consulted. It is their own decision. So, as a Nigerian, I am only bound by what is in the Constitution.
Yes.
This was a political arrangement, and it is a constitution that said that, okay, people can join political parties and then canvass for votes from the citizens, and then aspire for political offices. That's constitutional provision. Now, so the political party, the contestants are all subject to the Constitution, but I am not, subject to the Constitution of any political party.
Yes.
So, if I do not know if the Constitution has made provision for independent candidates, and this person presents himself as an independent candidate, I will still vote for him.
Yeah.
The only reason why this doesn't sell in the country is that, okay, as an independent candidate, you don't have the apparatus,
Yes.
the political structure, the resources, and that, that stubbornness of political parties, which comes from the various groups of people that make up the party. So I think the discussion is about how we can truly establish the spirit of separation of power, especially if we are convinced that it is what works for us, because the spirit is that will help in checkmating the excesses of all the arms of government.
Yes. If they are really independent.
Yes, and that as a people, we have been made to believe that if there are no established check and balances, chances are largely that we will get into a head over time and then convert everything to private or personal sentiments.
Yes.
And run the affairs of the government as within the woodworks of our whims and caprices. So if that is the interest, we are okay, it is agreed, we need check and balances, but to what extent? to what extent? Uh, are we good with what we currently have? Does this address the question? Do we have, because the problem of the National Assembly, taking advantage or feeling at liberty to, pad the budget is all thanks to a do you call it acculturation process? They have been accultured. They have been, made to feel that yes, it is their right over time, and which is all part of the antics of President Olusegun Obasanjo. Here is a man whose very government was typically only about beating every procedure to get what he wants done.
Yes.
And if you make such compromises at all levels, problem is that people will also try to take advantage of these things that you are making your way for. They will say, okay, fine, we'll give you this, but then again,
and you can't stop us from getting our ways, of course.
So it was very unusual that, okay, Yaradua, who was supposed to be an Obasanjo boy,
yes, to succeed him in
and
governance,
for which reason they gave their blessings to him, believing that all will be a continuum or a continuation of the status quo, and only for him to wake up one morning to say that no, this is not the budget I sent, and you have to therefore, take off your hands because it is my constitutional right to do that, and you don't have. Then they're telling you that it is your constitutional right.
Okay.
But we have a way in which to systematically make your government a hell, and that. Well, that is for that. The other issue is perhaps the early signals. Seven here is trying to draw attention to the fact that his health condition has begun to take a toll on him as early as 2008. Even though I wonder why or how he may have thought that the allergy was part of the major, illnesses he has been battling with, but he seems to say that the problem of his health actually started manifesting
from that allergic reaction.
Yeah, which is barely just about 9 months into his presidency, and that is sad for such a big man. A president is a big man, and it's such a very depressing experience for someone to be at that level.
And then being
helpless. What I met while reading this work is that, personally, as a Muslim, anyone who relies on any device of this world, whether it is a presidential system, our own devices as people, anyone who relies on them has failed. Because this is the extent to which one can be powerful in a country of over 160 million people. And despite being in such a position of enormous power, you will take a medication you took in a matter of just 30 minutes will have an effect on you that will make you feel helpless. just within 30 minutes, just allergy, so it tells you that you are naive. Even the things you are taking, you don't control what effect they take on you. And when they take the effect by our own will, you have no power to take it back, because if if it were to be about worldly power, the president was in position to get that thing removed within a second.
Yes.
But despite the abundance of resources, in terms both in terms of expertise and material provision, Yaradua could have dealt with such a matter by just a fiat, by just an instruction.
Yes.
But then again, even if you could put together the whole of the country, nothing could be done. So what I keep telling myself is that, okay, we have to feel contented, feel certain, feel stay faithful, because even people who rely on men and their devices sometimes succeed. God allows them to succeed. Then how much more of those of us who are always praying to God to never test us with relying on anything else other than Him. That has been for me a source of a great joy. That people will say, okay, me, I'm the PA of the, because I once came across a post on Facebook. It was a poster by someone, a complimentary card, who says that, okay, he's the friend to the PA of a governor. So so even these people survive,
Yes.
succeed,
They thrive.
they thrive. So it only reminds us that this chapter only reminds one that, okay, if you're a believer, because nowadays you have all sort of people, that are people who say that they don't believe, not knowing that not believing is also believing in not believing. So but as a believer, that is to tell you that you can have all the world in your hands, but then again, you cannot control the minutest test from God. I think this is how I look at it. I don't know if you look at it any differently.
That's just the way it is.
Because it is sad when you're too big and then your challenge is too small
and you're helpless.
I feel for President Yaradua, and I pray to God Almighty to perhaps reward him wherever he is, because that is the greatest test. It would have been different if you are a market man, whether your face is if you are people, because nowadays we see people who do things with reckless abandon. They don't give a damn about it. If my face is swollen, some people will say, okay, fine, okay, let me go and put face masks. Some people have a way of covering their whole. They will use turban to cover it. Some people are even happy to say, come, with this selfie thing. Yes. Someone will even snap a photo. Imagine I've developed new chicks and so on. So, but when it is a present,
the president is a public property.
Is a public property, and that is what Dr. Omar Farouk Abdullah always says, that the greater power you control as a man, the farther you are away from privacy, from God, because he believes that you come guilty before God.
Yes.
In the first place, you are guilty. Just prove your innocence. So how difficult that is for you to say, okay, I'm before God, and then I'm guilty and I'm to prove my innocence. That is so. But those who are far from power, as much as you find people who are far from power and who are still more vile, than those in power. But then again, the instrument of power has a way of telling you that, see, I am competing, I'm matching powers with the divine.
Yes.
But those who are far away from power sometimes, and there is this interpretation. Sometimes, even in our bad situation, the best of us happen to lead us. And the best of us is something we are incapable of understanding, because the parameters we use to determine who is the best are really our own inventions. Okay, this person must have a degree, must have competence, must have experience, something called experience, or this experience can be being a former governor, being a former senator, if you've been in, people who even woefully failed in the discharge of these duties now have a way of telling people that, okay, go and look at what I've done. I have all these experiences, and so these are some of the parameters with which we determine who is the best of us. But God sees beyond that. And that is why someone who has none of these things can be enthroned upon you by God, and then he is still the best for you, even if he performs woefully, because each time sometimes with the tools we have to define, to categorize crimes are also problematic. They are all okay. Constitutionally, he goes against the constitution. You say that is a crime, but then constitution is man-made. It is largely limited. There are decisions that, if you stick to the constitution, you will hurt the people even more.
Yes.
But you can so sometimes even at that, God still gives us the best of us to rule us. Maybe this person has more empathy, is large-hearted.
Yes.
He doesn't hold any malice against people. He's forgiving. Maybe he has had just one experience in the past. You see, for me, even President Jonathan is not the worst of us. We are just incapable of understanding the hikmah, the wisdom of God in giving him that, because you can't say that there is no wisdom in that, because President Yaradua is not like he sneaked into this world. Jonathan, he didn't sneak into this world. He was born, and he is not like he's trying to escape the scrutiny of God. God created him, sent him to this world, allowed him to grow, to become whatever he had become. So to now say that was the worst thing to have happened to Nigeria is to say that, is to question God. Because God would have, he was created by God. That was not a mistake. He was raised by God. That was not a mistake. And he was made the president by God. That you cannot just isolate that part and call it a mistake. In some of the things he has done, our earthly experiences and tools today tell us that he has not performed well. And don't forget, there is one story we had, I told you about, I think in the beginning, of what he did on LGBTQ.
Yes.
Whatever I know others will think, some people find that decision very important, fundamental, you know. So I don't know. That is just that is the reflections I had when I read that chapter. People will say, why? People look at the political side, but then me, Lukman, I take everything happening in this world because I take da'wah. I don't know what is the equivalent in English, but da'wah to mean every event in this world. You know, it doesn't have to be something organized. You don't have to go and sit down in a gathering and then a mufti telling you X, Y, Z. The world itself is a complete da'wah for people who have the capacity to understand. What has happened to President Yaradua is a very clear da'wah to people who understand the wisdom of God. You can have all the powers, but then be nothing and be taken away from. It is better to lose an election than to have it all and then die and leave it. You know, so that is my random tech. I think let us just mop together the remaining and say these things. One, after all these things that have happened, then the problem started aggravating. You know, from the malaria, it went to you know, the level of spending several days in a foreign land, receiving medical attention, and then this kept on plucking out big news. People kept on saying XYZ about his health condition, and as if we created our own reality, because when you keep talking about one thing over and over and over again, it has a way of becoming your reality. So as if we created our own reality by ourselves, the things the Nigerians have been saying about his health condition turn out to be the case eventually. It's as if God answered the prayer of Nigerians. And from that point, medical tourism began, and then it got to a point that the matter became a secret. Some people kept on saying XYZ until he was no more. You know, government still went on. You know, if you say you will not do what you need to do, the government will still go on. It went on. He was on bed, sick bed. Many things were done, including appointments of people into offices, budget, and so on. And then the struggle from people to resist the recognition of Jonathan as acting president, and quite a lot of other troubles. I'm grateful that we've done justice to this work right from the very beginning. All other issues from here onwards, I think, have been effectively discussed. Now, the issue of doctrine of necessity, we have discussed that.
Yes.
And then, okay, his return into the country. After many months
Yes.
in
Saudi Arabia.
Saudi Arabia, has also been discussed, including, some of the reactions it had, generated. Then the beginning of the end, which is also uh, effectively discuss how certain officials of the government try to, maintain the balance. You know, like the SGF, the ADC, and so on, how they try to manage what is actually a very tough situation in the country. The president is in the villa, the vice president is in acting capacity, and you have two authorities in the same place. You don't know to whom you are to give your loyalty, and so on. Everyone was skeptical whether to side with Jonathan or to stay true to President Yaradua, because nobody was sure what was going to happen. Yes. Then eventually God intervened, and what was necessary was done, and everyone has forgotten that that was one of the most difficult episodes in the history of Nigeria's evolution. Then the days of the cabal, which according to Sewin actually never existed. There are only people who try to stay above board, people who try to turn the tides to their own advantage, and some people who are just merely portrayed in the media as being too powerful unnecessarily, even if that was not effectively true. And the word cabals were introduced. And we discussed last time, this idea of some people controlling those in position of power is not a new thing in Nigeria.
Yes.
And at every level, if we should say, okay, Lukman, you will be the chairman of, you will be the president of this reviews or an association, or someone will say that Lukman doesn't listen to advice, he is being misled by his primary school friends and so on. So that's normal. If people will care about, do I go and ask for Ghanaians to advise me on how to run Nigeria? No. And in Nigeria, I'm not expected to go and ask my enemies to advise me on how to run the country. President or not, my enemy is my enemy.
Yes.
I don't even want my enemy to vote for me. If you vote for me, if I have a way to look at the vote, I will go and cancel it. So, but I will also carry out my responsibility as your president whenever that is necessary. But to say that you are my enemy, so I'm your president, I don't do this pretensions. People know me. I am not pretentious. If you are my enemy, I don't even want your vote. If you know we are enemies today and tomorrow I happen to seek for election, then don't vote for me, because it doesn't matter. Man, that's the truth. So if I become a president, don't expect me to come and seek for advice from you. But if I have a duty, a responsibility to do something for you, I'll do it. But that is entirely different. So this idea of cabals, people try to prove that they are not controlled by anyone, do things that people who are not controlled by everyone are dictators.
Yes.
Even dictators are controlled by some people. You are a human being. You are subject to certain sentiments. You are subject to certain limitations. You are subject to your culture. A lot of things. Because you are president, are you saying that your father will not tell you that, okay, see, please be fair to everyone in the country? Is that not? Do you tell your father, see, father, this I'm president. This is not your business. So advice can come in different shades.
Yes.
But people now want to prove that they are not controlled by anyone, or people want to say that they are not, do you call it nepotism? They are not nepotic, and they do all sort of things. So they will go and appoint someone who shares no vision with them, just because of
Just
something called
anti-nepotism.
to look just for political correctness. That if you do it, it is at your own behest. It's not. So people should just understand that this idea of cabals controlling you is natural as long as you take the trouble of becoming a leader. You cannot escape from this kind of thing. So, well, that's the end of this, I think, review, and everything ended with Yaradua's very um, event. Yeah. So I think we have been able to look at this work thoroughly. Let us hope that we will have the opportunity to get the author next week to tell us 10 years after writing the book what new thoughts he would want to share about the book. We will try to get that, but if for any reason we couldn't, we'll keep trailing him until when we eventually could, get him to join us. And which means that if we are not lucky next week, we would look at a new book, and what that book is, you will have to join us next week to know. So thank you very much, and have a nice time ahead. Thank you.